Hi everyone, this is Laura from lauradocumented.com, and I am Laura Documented on Instagram. And today I wanted to share a flip through of one of my favorite projects that I've ever created. This is my December Daily album for 2017. And if you don't know what a December Daily is, it's a project by Ali Edwards that basically, the idea is to create an album where you tell one story per day in the month of December. And I love having a chance to reflect and celebrate one of my favorite seasons of the year. So this was my second time doing the project. I used a green star album from Ali Edwards. I've labeled the spine with the year. And I like to start my albums out with a transparency and then a full page photo. So I used this wreath transparency that I got in I bought a box off of eBay of someone's products that they were destashing, and it was a mix of manufacturers of all kinds of December and Christmas products, so that's most of what you'll see in this album. Some of them are several years old. And I decorated this with a 17 die cut and then some holly leaves and puffy stickers. It says December Story. This originally had a rubber piece, but it got damaged, so I had to remove it. And then the back, I've just put some floral die cuts and more puffy stickers to cover up the adhesive. And for this intro photo, I printed out a 6x8 photo, which is my favorite photo from the season, of me and my mom and my dog picking out our Christmas tree. And when I did this album, I didn't have the ability to print photos at home. I do now, but I see a lot of places that people say it's not possible to do this project unless you have at-home printing and finish the album in the month of December. I believe I finished this album the first week of January, so it is possible to get it done with printing at Target and Walgreens and places like that, but it's just a little more challenging. So I started off the album with a kind of intentions page, but I wrote it in the form of a wish list. It says, "All I want for Christmas is," which was the prompt on this 6x8 page. And I wrote, "A season of warmth and comfort, cozy days and time spent with loved ones, slowing down and reconnecting with my faith and gratitude for my life, peace and stillness, joy-filled holiday memories with my kids at work, creative projects and hand-knit socks, maybe even my first hand-knit sweater, appreciating the holiday with Bogey and his daily joy for life and presents, love, peace, comfort, and calm as I prepare and reflect on the year to come." And I started off my album on the next page with a divided page protector, and I had this photo of my dog that I had recently taken that I really loved, so I just printed that out as a 6x8, cut it in half, and then decorated it with some die cuts. And that's how I started my album. I always begin on Thanksgiving Day. Well, I have the 2 years that I've done this project, because that's for me the beginning of the holiday season, and I like having somewhere to put Thanksgiving memories as well. So this year I was in New York City the day before Thanksgiving, so I saw some of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloons, so I put a photo of that here. And I used this gratitude card to just say that I was thankful to be home from New York City to be celebrating with my family. I have this is a marbled kind of look transparency, and then at work I had made a hand turkey with some of my kids, and I glued this onto a 6x8 page and then just filled in "I am thankful for," and then I made a list of all the things I was thankful for. And that's something that I really like to do on Thanksgiving, is just write a gratitude list. The next day was the start of Christmas celebrations for me, and what I like to do is to go pick up Secret Santa hearts, which is a local project where you can pick out these hearts off of at local businesses, and they have um, information about people in need, and you can buy them a gift off their wish list. So I like doing that on Black Friday as a way to kind of not get caught up in the frenzy of shopping for myself, but focus on what I can give back. And so I did some journaling about that. I have an Instax photo of a wreath I picked up at the local hardware store where I went to go get the hearts. And then I've created this little banner using the tag from the wreath. The next day at work, one of my girls experienced hot chocolate for the first time, so I documented that. I can take photos and have photos for personal, like for my album. I just can't show their faces online, so you'll see when I've documented stuff from work, I've just covered up some faces. Then I went to church on Sunday. This is a photo of the inside of the church that I went to. And I've decorated that with more stars. I really like using large 6x8 photos and then decorating, like kind of embellishing around the edges. That's a look I often use in my albums. I have a bookmark from church. And this is a page from the bulletin that has a part of the service that I particularly liked, that I just wrote my thoughts on that. The next page I had was two pages next to each other. So I filled in the back of this with a 6x8 paper that I just cut into fourths, just to have something on the back. And so the numbers you'll see, 27, is not the date, it's the days until Christmas. So because I start my album in November with Thanksgiving, I do a countdown to Christmas. So that's why you'll see the numbers they start out big and they'll get smaller and smaller rather than numbering December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, etc. So I included a craft I had made at work. This next day is just some thoughts on visiting a local scrapbook store for the first time, which is kind of, because this is just kind of an everyday memory, but it's really cool to see this because now I'm on the design team for this local scrapbook store and I go there quite often, so I'm really glad I documented. Even though this isn't necessarily a Christmassy story, it's I'm really glad to have this documented. And and I use embellishments, and I used these Christmas tree embellishments and some papers that make it look festive. More work documentation. And then as we transition into December, I like to have some sort of transparency that marks the change from November to December. So I have this December transparency that I put a Merry sticker on. I have a striped transparency, and then I have this full page collage where I did 24 days until Christmas. I have this traditional Polish Christmas card that I got a few years ago, and I wanted to include the information about the card because it had some Polish writing in it. And then it has on the back, it talks about some of the traditions of using straw, which is depicted in this card. And I just stapled a little tab that says the story on here, and so not everyone will necessarily know to pull that out, but I know it's there, and I like having it as part of my album. Next we have December 1st, where I documented putting up some Christmas decorations with my partner. And I often do this in December where if I have a day where I'm spending it with someone that I love, my mom or my partner or a friend, I'll give them a journal card and ask them to write their thoughts. And so these are my thoughts on decorating my apartment with my partner, and then these are his thoughts about it. More work documentation. The next page is an about all of our advent calendars. I did this collage in the Project Life app and then added some embellishments, some wood veneer, red stars, some stickers. And I did some journaling about all of the advent calendars we had going on. I had a yarn advent calendar, I had a tea advent calendar, I made an advent calendar for my dog, and then of course my partner we had to include him, so we got him a chocolate advent calendar. And I really like doing this. I need to remember to do this more often, where I do a little photo collage in the Project Life app, because those turn out, I think they look really clean and really neat. Next page is about watching some Christmas movies. And then I got sick, which I can tell by there's a lot of tea tags and this filler card that has a tea cup. And then I did a little bit of journaling back here just about I had to take a sick day. And so this is something that, like, it wasn't a particularly great day, but you can still make it look, I don't think I did this the day of, I think I must have done it when I was feeling better, but you can still make it look decorative. I like to do shaker pockets with tea tags. That to me is kind of a nice way to document maybe a day where I didn't feel so great, but still have it be a beautiful part of the album. This is another filler page. I have, this was a old Christmas card I sent several years ago. I had an extra one. And then this was from a story kit. The prompt says, "For the love of," and then I just filled in the hearts with things I was loving at the time. So this kind of goes with the page, but I believe I filled this in later. 18 Days to Christmas, a self-timer shot of me putting together a puzzle. 70 Days. This was something that one of my kids had given me at work. I really love this spread. This is one of the pages I'm particularly proud of. I've got a large photo that goes outside the page protector of my dog with some Christmas lights. And the way I printed these out at Walgreens is I print an 8x8 photo and then just trim it down. And it doesn't, you can see there's some washi tape at the top because it doesn't extend to the top of the page protector. But this is still, if you don't have the ability to print large photos at home, you can still get these large photos outside the page protector. They'll just be a little bit shorter, and you can either add washi tape or just leave them a little bit smaller, because it doesn't really bother me to have different sized pages. I like that look. And this is another example of a hard story. I was in a car accident this day, and I chose to keep the page pretty simple, just have some reflective journaling. And rather than writing about, I mean, I wrote about my thoughts and about how it was, you know, scary because the person was under the influence and they didn't have a license. But I kind of ended it by saying that I was grateful to be whole and safe and surrounded by people who love and support me. So there is a place in these albums for harder stories. Just because you don't have a perfectly Christmassy, going to see Santa, everything's cheerful type of story doesn't mean that there's not a place for it in your December daily. The next day this is another large photo. You can see this one is a little bit shorter because this is an 8x8 photo that I trimmed down of me and my dog getting a Christmas tree. And the story that I wrote is about me and my mom kind of figuring out how to do Christmas ourselves after my dad moved out. And again, it's a harder story, but I framed it as she believed she could, so she did, which is me kind of making a funny pose in front of the Christmas tree that I put up and put lights on myself. So again, I'm glad to have this perspective of it reflects how Christmases have changed for me and my family, but also how I've grown. Next page is another large photo, a portrait of my cat. And this was just a lazy day of watching Harry Potter, cuddling with the cats. So I've got, this was the front of the DVD box that I just cut down, and I've included that. I like having the different textures, and I like having things, it's not all just plastic page protectors. Next day, more work documentation. This was just a little drawing I had done to fill some time when I was working with some of the kids. One of my girls lost her first tooth, so I documented that. Included, this is a scanned coloring page that one of my kids gave me. I love the colors on it. So lots of documenting work. More work. This was a day I taught one of my kids to scrapbook. Large photo here. This was a page I put together when we were working on her scrapbook, and then I've included more journaling tucked away in the back with a little plastic tab stapled to it. The back includes another filler 6x8 page. I really love using these and having a mix of photos and text and adding a few embellishments. These are some of the more of those wood veneer stars. Here we've got a postcard that I'd picked up years ago. It had a little tear on the front, so I just covered it with some die cuts and a little sticker and a tag that says 9 days. And then on the back, I glued on a 4x6 journal card, and I included my journaling here, my partner's journaling here, and then a photo of all of us together. And I do, even though I have the 9 days to Christmas, I still try to include the date somewhere in the spread. This is a looking back page. This was a photo I had found of me and my brother. And it's not a particularly great photo. We're looking at these Christmas villages in the window. It's something that I was going to put in my childhood album, but probably would get lost. And I wanted to include the story, which is that we used to collect these every year and give one to our mom. It was kind of a tradition to give her one of these little miniature houses for Christmas. So I did my journaling here about the photo, remembering going to this particular store in the mall to pick out a new house for Mom. I did my journaling here about the current year, which was that she put up some of the houses again for the first time in several years because we had gotten kittens and they were at risk for doing some harm to them. So finally the cats are old enough that we could put up the houses again. And then I asked my mom to do some journaling on the inside of this about how this tradition started, because I was so young that I don't necessarily remember. And I always appreciate that she's willing to do some journaling in my albums. I have a Fa La La transparency. This was a page that I struggled with. I wanted to do this collage. It was from a Christmas party. I don't particularly love it. It took me a long time to just kind of move on and stop messing with it. But I have an Instax and then a printed photo from this Christmas party. And there's no journaling, and that's fine. Just some days I do more journaling, some days I do less. Here's another Project Life app collage. This is about my Spotify playlist that I was currently listening to. So I did 2 screenshots of my library and recently played. And then I left, I believe I picked some filler card here, but then I covered it up with an actual printed out card so it has some dimension. And then I did my journaling here, stamped the date and added some stickers. And I like the hybrid quality of adding things after it's printed. Another transparency, this one says joy. And here I used, this was a scrap lift from Allie Edwards of documenting my wrapping paper for the year. So I used the 2x2 square page protector, cut down a large photo, and then removed one of them and put a transparency in there with a die cut that says Merry, 8 for 8 days till Christmas. And then I put some word stickers along the side here. And there's no other journaling that says, you know, this is my Christmas wrapping paper, but I think that's fine, you know, kind of know what that's a photo of. And then on the back, I used this to document Secret Santa. And so from the beginning of the album, when I had done that Black Friday photo of the Christmas trees, these are the ornaments that I picked out. I punched holes in a plastic envelope from the Story Kit subscription that I get. And I've included all these plastic hearts for the people that I got gifts for. And I like to keep those in the album, my album each year. It's fun to look back on. And then I had these from the For the Love kit, story kit. I had these die cut prompt cards that said For the Love of, and then I put the names of each person that I was buying gifts for. So For the Love of Denise, For the Love of Laura, For the Love of Kathy, and did a little journaling about just delivering the gifts and what that meant to me. And I've done more extensive journaling in a previous album about how I got started with this and why it's so important to me. So this is one of the things that I will document every year, some years in more detail than others. And then to complete the spread, I have a photo of me in the car with my dog after dropping off the presents, a photo of all the gifts that other people had donated as well, which is really always fun to see. And it says, Big Love for This, Secret Santa, which this was, I think, a 4x6 card that I cut down. And the next page is one with some hidden journaling. This was a particularly hard day for me. I did my journaling in this little Santa envelope that I got, I think at Michael's last year. And then I cut down this chipboard that says the struggle is part of the story. And I have this, I paired it with a large photo of a jigsaw puzzle, which is something that I do when I'm tend to not be feeling well. And so this was a day that I didn't want to, I didn't feel like my journaling needed to be seen, but I still wanted it to be a part of the album. So this is another way you can document a hard day. This is another scrap lift from Allie Edwards. She did this vellum page with a large stamped quote several years ago, and I've always liked the way that looked. This was a church service I attended, and this was part of the reading. When I am falling apart, I feel like a pile of colored glass, fragile, broken, uncoordinated. When I am at my most whole, when I am feeling my most holy, I feel a lot like a stained glass window. I am still a pile of broken, jagged bits of sparkly glass, but somehow all of those pieces have been suspended by love, and suddenly they are all arranged and woven into something greater. And I've paired that with a large photo of the door at church. "4 days until Christmas." I've documented the flowers that my mom and I were growing. This is a bulb bag that we picked up at the nursery. And I've included, I like to include text messages to, if I'm not with the person, if I can't be with them in person, it's a nice way to include their voice. So I've got photos that we were texting of our amaryllis bulbs. Mine hadn't bloomed and my mom's was blooming. And this card said peace, joy, love, and I added and flowers. I think this is my last work day before getting some time off for the holidays. So I documented some of that. This is my my dog is a service dog, so he would go to work with me. Just documenting some of that. Now with 2 days till Christmas, this is a bit of a longer, I start to tend, towards the beginning of the album, I tend to have maybe just one page. Then I start to do the spread, and then here you can see I've done a spread and then the back of a page. So I naturally tend to, if I did that for every day, I would run out of room. But I tried to keep my stories a little shorter in the beginning of the month so I can include more as we get closer to Christmas. So this was a day where my partner and I went into Union Square to see some of the decorations in San Francisco. I love this photo of me and my dog looking in the window of Macy's. I included some ephemera, our little, our tickets from taking the BART. Some more photos. And then I like to include transparencies to mark kind of a divide. So I've got one, then this one has some snowflakes. And then I've got this stained glass. It was from a Christmas card. I just cut off the cover. And then this is my Christmas Eve page. I had my partner do some journaling about going to church together. And then on the back, I did a gratitude list. Another thing I like to revisit several times. I've got another transparency. I really love transparencies. This one has some pine branches and what looks like little polka dots or snow. And I don't live somewhere where it snows, but I still like to include snowflakes and snow themed products. A bulletin from church. Here I've put in a Christmas card that I just punched holes in, and then I cut slits in this front page so you can still open it up and read the card. And then to mark the transition into Christmas Day, I've got this is a 5x7 photo of our tree on Christmas Eve with all of the presents under it. I've included these rubber words that say Christmas stories. And then on the back, I have a longer handwritten journaling just about Christmas Day, how it's worth all the kind of work that goes into it, and how this was a little different year. It was the first year celebrating with my partner, and how meaningful that was. And then I just kind of talked about some of the things we did that day, so that in the rest of the documenting of the actual Christmas Day, I didn't have to worry about explaining the photos. I could just enjoy the kind of visual decoration, and then I would have all the information here. So this is another scrap lift I did from Allie Edwards. She gave, I think she's done this several years, where she makes tags and has people in her family fill out tags. And so this was the first year I did it. I made these tags just by cutting down, I think I printed out a template that, you know, it says it has name, age, currently into, holiday drink of choice, favorite holiday movie, favorite moment from Christmas, and best memory of the past year. And then I cut down some patterned paper to back that with, and then I put a circle with the initial of the person. And then I had each person go through and pick out ribbon from my ribbon box to kind of personalize their tag. So this was the ribbon I picked out. I put mine at the beginning, kind of with my journaling about the day. Then we have I like to do this for kind of birthdays and Christmas and other celebrations, where I have this is a 3x4 divided page protector with 4 slots. And I include just some ephemera from the day. Like this was from a gift from my dog, tags from other presents that I gave or received, business cards from gifts. And I like seeing all the different textures, and it's kind of see-through and it has lots of different layers to it. I really like seeing that. And some of them I stapled in place, and some of them I just taped with washi to keep those closed. This was a tag I did for my dog, because he's part of the celebration too. I filled this one out about some of his holiday favorites, and I paired that with a photo of him in his Christmas pajamas, completely crashed. And then on the flip side, you have the rest of the mess in our living room, and my partner is asleep on the couch. So I like having those two photos paired together. I've got a Christmas, this is a postcard that a friend of mine sent several years ago from Japan. It was blank on the back, and this is something I like to do when I travel, is to write a things not to forget list, or things to remember list. And these are little bullet points, little stories that wouldn't necessarily make the cut to be a full page in a scrapbook or a journal, but they're little memories that I want to remember. Like my cat pouncing and ripping on the paper after he saw my dog do it. How my mom, I had asked for some of these hair ties I really like, and she kept looking for, in my stocking, she kept looking for these specific kind of hair ties and couldn't find them, so she kept buying other kinds of hair ties. So I ended up with like 5 packs of hair ties in my stocking. Finally at the bottom were the kind that I really like. So I really like that memory. It says a lot about my mom and her dedication to Christmas, and but I wouldn't necessarily document that anywhere else. So I often do this on postcards or on other cards. that's a really easy way to get more stories in. I've got a photo outside the page protector. I got a puzzle for Christmas, so there's me doing the puzzle, and then this is a brochure about the company. Another brochure from something I had given. Here we have, this is a die cut page that I just slipped in a page protector. It was a 12 by 12 page that I got at a scrapbook store a long time ago, and I just cut it down finally because I have been saving it for so long. This is my partner's tag with his answers. Do you know what I got you is this is a story that I'm really glad I included. I cut down a 2 by 2 inch page protector and then included a little Avery index tab. And this was something, I did some journaling explaining what this is, and then stamped out, "Do you know what I got you?" in big letters, because this was something that my partner and I, being as this was our first Christmas, giving each other gifts, we spent a lot of time teasing each other about what we got the other person. And every time it was like a really terrible gift. So like he told me, like he would start and say, "Do you know what I got you?" And I would say, "No, what?" And then he would say like a year subscription for meats of the month. I'm vegetarian, so that's a terrible gift. Or like I told him I was going to get him a carnival treasure chest full of slime because he really hates the texture. And I just filled those in with some of the ones that we could remember that throughout the month that we had said, because it was an ongoing joke for quite a while. Here I have a full page photo of us with the actual gifts that we gave, and then I listed the things that we gifted to each other. And then this is a particularly meaningful gift that my partner gave me. He got my great-grandfather's name put on the Immigrant Wall of Honor at Ellis Island because we had recently visited. And this is a photo that he took of me opening the gift, which I love that he takes photos like that. I did my journaling about the gift, and then this was the certificate. It was 8.5 by 11, but I just scanned it and printed it out smaller to fit in there. This is my mom's tag, and I had her do some journaling about Christmas Day, and you can see she was very willing to write about the gifts. And then these are pictures of her opening her gifts. I had a few more stories to finish up the album. I always try to go until New Year's Day. I never seem to make it. I usually do a day or two after Christmas, and then I'm kind of done with the project. But this was a story. I like to include a recipe each year. This was a pot pie recipe. This is what we ate on Christmas Day, and this is the recipe that my mom she kind of created it herself. And so I asked her to write that out for me. Here is my brother's tag. He, not very many words, but he was still willing to do it. So that's what I would say is don't be afraid to ask people to contribute to your album, because even though I thought my brother was going to be very resistant, he didn't write a lot, but I still love having his answers in here. This was another story that I had to include, is getting me and my dog matching pajamas. I took this photo a couple days after Christmas, and I think this is something I finished up in January. I have a story about my friend who often comes to visit a day or two after Christmas, and how we kind of had our celebration together. I think I intended to put a photo in here. It never happened. I wanted to write more about some of these stories. Like this is the December Daily postcard that came with the supplies I got. Or I think this came with the album. I think that's... And I wanted to write more about the project. I never did. These are some little, like this is a business card from a brunch I had a few days after Christmas with another friend. I didn't write the story down, and that's fine. And then you can see I just end with some wrapping paper. So I hope you enjoyed seeing a flip through of this album. Thank you for hanging in there if you stuck with me the whole way. You can leave me comments on YouTube or Instagram if you have any questions. And I hope you're having a really good day today. Bye.